In the basement, two people are discussing Crixus. Octus believes Crixus has made significant progress, while Barka instantly becomes jealous. Suddenly, Octus discovers his bird flying in the sky. Someone has broken his birdcage. It was Ashur and Dagon, due to Octus and Barka always urinating in their food. This revenge seemed fitting. The four immediately break into a fight. 2-on-2, Lucretia and Gaia, having just seen off guests, hear the commotion and run over. Ashur calls for Crixus's help, but Crixus feels he hasn't yet earned the mark of Brotherhood and doesn't qualify to intervene in a fight between brothers. This statement gives Gannicus a new understanding of him. Enimaz rushes to break up the fight but is elbowed in the face by Dagon, prompting Gannicus to join the fray. Then, returning from the city with his son, he can't believe his family members are fighting each other. Have we fallen so low? This is why the gods punish us by taking away our primus. He wonders.
I do not fight in the games?
You do not.
Gannicus is frustrated, wondering what his and Melita's sacrifices were for. Lucretia is equally frustrated, having just tried to curry favor with Varus. By evening, the first fight list arranged by Tullius is announced. Barka versus Neus, Octus versus Crixus. On the next day, as the gladiators prepare to depart, Lucretia didn't expect that after all their efforts, the Primus's spot would still be taken away. Quintus wants to resist, but at home, his father has the final say. Leaving him with no options, Titus calls his son to depart, and Lucretia offers a cup of fruit wine to her father in the name of celebration. Titus doesn't refuse. He genuinely likes fruit wine. Quintus wants to join but is refused by Lucretia.
I shall join you.
It disquiets your stomach too much.
Quintus immediately suspects something is wrong with the wine, but he doesn't reveal his suspicions, allowing his father to drink it. Barka and Octus are undoubtedly a divine pair. Facing a new challenge today, they are to fight separately. Barka against Neus with Octus cheering from the sidelines. Barka, indeed a powerful gladiator, is used by Quintus as a bodyguard. Barka is a heavy armored gladiator, not because of the weight of the armor but evolved from ancient Greek hoplites, armed with a long spear and a small round shield, with a sharp dagger underneath for both offense and defense. His opponent, Neus, is a Thracian gladiator, equipped with a medium-sized square shield and a long dagger. Neus's strength is not to be underestimated, and the fight goes back and forth, with Barka slowly gaining some advantage. Even in the midst of a life-and-death struggle, he doesn't forget to greet his worried friend before continuing his attack. Barka pushes back Neus again, and as Neus is thrown into the stands, their best friends cheer in unison. Barka, taking advantage of his victory, causes Neus to fall from the stands. Barka's dagger is immediately at his throat, and Neus is defeated as expected. Barka then looks towards the main stand, waiting for the verdict. Varus, remembering the hospitality of Quintus and his wife, grants Neus clemency. Then, Titus announces the second round of competitors, starting with Crixus. Making his debut in the arena, he struggles to adapt. Unlike his opponent, Octus, a heavy armored war god, has slain numerous gladiators in the arena and is being groomed by Titus as the Primus of Capua. In Titus's eyes, his status is above both Barka and Gannicus. Like his friend, he is a heavy armored gladiator.
Begin!
Octus, agile and explosive in his attacks, quickly corners Crixus. After the round of attack, he walked towards Barka with the dagger from under his shield. While Crixus dared not make a rash move, Octus launched another attack, and after two sweeping strikes, he managed to wound Crixus with the dagger from under his shield. To close the distance for the attack, Crixus had no choice but to bravely move forward, only to be wounded by the dagger again. As they were fiercely fighting, suddenly a spectator fell into the arena. Fortunately, he was a bit far from the two, and in a critical moment, he managed to climb up. At that moment, Crixus was thrown out, and Octus leaped high to launch a fierce downward strike. Crixus hurriedly raised his large shield to defend. Crixus won the victory, and from then on, he marched triumphantly until he became the undefeated Gallic god of war. Barka looked towards Octus, and Octus also stared back. They did not expect such an outcome. After returning to the training ground, Crixus finally received the Brotherhood mark of his family. Gaia's judgment was not wrong. He believed that one day Crixus could possibly rival Gannicus. Then, Barka found Crixus, and he did not blame Crixus for Octus's death, since they were all slave gladiators forced into their roles. Barka kept Octus's pigeon to remember him and soothe his soul. When Gaia saw a wealthy person on the street, she immediately wanted to bring him into her circle, but when she approached to greet him, he had no recollection of who she was. However, when she mentioned her friend Lucretia's name, he became interested.
Lucretia can attest.
Lucretia? Wife to the Lanista Batiatus?
I do call him husband, yes.
I have heard your house spoken of. And the, pleasures contained within.
Lucretia immediately told her husband about this, and Quintus, wanting to please the influential figure, quickly had his wife organize a banquet. He planned to take his father out of town for a few hours, and later, father and son arrived at the seaside, wanting to select some slaves to train as gladiators. Lucretia's banquet had already begun, and Quintus also called Salonius to help. Lucretia told the guests they could indulge as they wished, as all the slaves and gladiators there were at their disposal. Suddenly, Tullius arrived, causing everyone's hearts to jump to their throats. Salonius immediately found Tullius. It turned out he had leaked the news to Tullius but had not invited him. He urged Tullius to leave, but Tullius, who didn't even consider the magistrate, left Salonius with no choice but to leave. Then, Lucretia brought out various god masks, hoping the guests could enjoy themselves as deities. Tullius directly approached Gannicus, challenging him to a duel. Left with no choice, Lucretia had to agree. Of course, Tullius was no match for Gannicus, but as a slave, Gannicus dared not strike at his master's guest. He had to surrender by raising 2 fingers. Tullius, however, refused to let him go, but fortunately, Lucretia intervened in time. Tullius no longer focused on Gannicus but began to wander around. Gaia decided to use her charms on Tullius, especially since he was wealthy and had once fancied her. With Lucretia's agreement, soon, Gaia and Tullius retired to a room, where Tullius remembered the days he admired Gaia. Now that he had the opportunity, he couldn't help but feel lucky.
Yet I would have word of it travel no further.
Petition this for yourself. Or for the house of Batiatus.
Gaia openly stated it was for her friend Lucretia, and soon, they began to engage in adult activities. An hour after the banquet ended, Salonius also left the mansion, and Lucretia hurriedly had her servants clean up. The banquet was too successful.
God of the sun!
And truth.
And Lucretia was somewhat afraid, worrying that Tullius might do something outrageous, especially since she hadn't seen Gaia. Tullius mentioned he had already agreed to Gaia's request, suggesting she find her for answers. Tullius left, and Lucretia went to the inner room in search of Gaia, where she found Gaia's wig at the door.
Yeah?
Gaia was dead, and Titus was very angry. Lucretia wants revenge on Gaia, hoping her husband will stand by her side. Titus suggests claiming Gaia drank too much and accidentally fell off a cliff.
Do not look to him. I am the dominus of this house. See it done. Quintus.
Quintus cannot defy his father, leaving Lucretia isolated and without support. Titus calls his son out, not for anything else but to hope Quintus will annul his marriage with her. Titus has always been dissatisfied with Lucretia, believing she lacks a distinguished family background or any commendable value, and has even failed to produce an heir for the family. Titus gives his son 2 days to decide, either divorce or leave the house with Lucretia. Quintus refuses to do so. He looks at his wife, while Lucretia looks towards the balcony. After walking out, she sees Gaia about to be thrown off the cliff. Gaia dies because of her, and being her only friend, he gives Gaia a final kiss. Gaia's tragic end strengthens Lucretia's resolve for revenge, but she is powerless and faces unprecedented difficulties. It's infuriating that she and her husband are helpless as the enemy who plotted against her friend arrives at their home, leaving her voice hoarse from anger.
You do nothing to stop him.
A fool in such regard, allowing frustration to strip sense from tongue.
Spilling truth has consequence.
I would not hurt you.
Oh, everything spins from control.
Titus's greatest dissatisfaction is her inability to bear children, so she decides to conceive an heir for her husband, believing it's not too late as long as she tries. She sets her sights on Crixus, Gaia's favorite, hoping to conceive a child with him. In the afternoon, when Quintus and Titus are out discussing business, she seizes the opportunity to call Crixus to her room. Her husband doesn't return home until evening. Quintus had thought about killing his father but ultimately couldn't bring himself to do it. Thus, he prepares to be expelled from the home with his wife, losing everything but still having each other. The next day, Quintus informs his father of his decision, but Titus wants to watch the Gladiator ranking match first. He is not keen on his son leaving and might even compromise. The final match is between Gannicus and Crixus. If Gannicus loses, he will be sold to Tullius. Since being forced into a relationship with Melita, Gannicus has uncontrollably fallen in love with her, despite her being his best friend's wife. Unwilling to betray her husband, Melita finds life tasteless and thinks being sold might be the best outcome. Thus, under Melita's gaze, he drops his sword and is defeated by Crixus. After the match, Titus attempts to persuade his son again but suddenly feels unwell and faints from coughing. Quintus urgently sends for a doctor while Lucretia contemplates. The doctor quickly diagnoses the need for fever-reducing herbs, which are not available in the mansion. So, he sets off to the city with Quintus and the trainer, advising Lucretia that fruit wine can alleviate Titus's condition. Lucretia follows the doctor's advice to give Titus the wine, but he refuses it because it's from Tullius. Lucretia doesn't insist. Meanwhile, Melita wants to visit Gannicus to have a good talk on their last night. Lucretia doesn't refuse. Melita quickly arrives at Gannicus's room, holding the wine gifted by Tullius. Gannicus is unhappy with being called a friend, thinking their relationship would be different tonight, so he refuses the fruit wine. Melita, seemingly to muster courage, slowly drinks the wine herself, then confesses her love to Gannicus. She has also completely fallen in love with Gannicus. At that moment, Lucretia, under the doctor's advice, convinces Titus to drink the fruit wine. Titus, having seen a change in Lucretia who took great care of him, inquires, "Was I wrong about you? You're not as cruel as I thought, are you?" Lucretia responds, "I'm worse than that." It turns out that from the first day Titus returned to the mansion, she began to poison his fruit wine. Initially, she just wanted Titus to feel unwell so that he would leave and recuperate in Sicily, but Titus insisted on staying, so she increased the dosage, causing him to faint. Titus then realizes that all his ailments were because of Lucretia. However, Lucretia also added a large amount of poison to Tullius's wine. But it was Melita who first drank the wine and suddenly felt unwell, started coughing up blood, and quickly died. The same happened to Titus. Lucretia's goal was achieved. She wanted to use Titus's death to enable her husband to regain power, and then attack Tullius to avenge Gaia. After calming herself, she walks out of the room with a smile, only to be confronted with the sight of dead Melita. She then remembers that she forgot to put away the wine bottle, which caused Melita's death. She hurriedly grabs the wine bottle and tells Gannicus that Enemaus must never know Melita went to his room. Once everyone leaves her side, she falls into deep self-blame. Apart from her husband and Gaia, Melita was the person she cared about the most. When the three who were out return, Enemaus immediately sees his wife. He has no idea what happened. In just a short time, his perfectly healthy wife is dead. Quintus also notices something in the room, runs over, and sees his dead father. He guesses his father's death is related to his wife, as he knew from the start that she had been poisoning the diluted wine she gave his father. He turns to look at Lucretia, and her expression says it all. Quintus doesn't blame her because she was also solving a problem they both faced. Moreover, he had thought about killing his father himself but ultimately couldn't go through with it. He silently accepts everything.